Hare Krishna. So we'll start our session today by paying our obeisances to His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. So today we are in our journey for chapter 18. We started with chapter 18 in the last class. The title of the chapter is, it's the conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. And this is the longest chapter as well. And we see how beautifully Krishna has again kind of summarized for us. In the beginning, it's like a perfect, we can say that it's a nice way to put across for us while presenting something as well, with that skills where you start with the topic, you give a summary, and then you talk about the topics. And then in the end, you conclude with the summary as well. So it has 78 verses. Which gives us the flavor of whatever main concepts we have touched base in Gita so far. So last week we covered from shloka 1 to 40, which was where we, and today we'll be covering from 41st verse to 55, and we plan to complete the session of 18th chapter in the next session. So last class, we learned how the chapter starts with Arjuna's question. And can somebody tell me what was that question? What is the difference between two terminologies?
Yeah, what is the difference between Tyaga and Sannyas?
Thank you, Prabhu. So what is Sannyasa and Tyaga? That is where it started, right? And like the chapter says, it is renunciation. What is the perfection of renunciation? That's what Krishna is explaining. So when we learned about sannyasa and tyaga, so tyaga was something where we have to renounce the results of the activities, and give the renouncing the results of activities to Krishna. And sannyasa was, Krishna explained, it's an order of life. And we learned how about kamya karma and nitya karma, right? Where Kamya karma, sannyasa is where Kamya karma is given up, but Nitya karma continues. The prescribed duties. Whereas in Tyaga, Kamya and Nitya, both are being done. But the results are given up. Right? So then after explaining Tyaga and renunciation, Krishna explained about the 5 factors. Now, when we are talking about renouncing the results, how can we, because we have a tendency to think, that I, me, myself centered, like self. So Krishna says that how can you, renounce renounce the results is by understanding that we are not the only doer. It's very important. And with that, Krishna explains there are actually 5 factors, which influence, something to happen. And those 5 factors of action we learned. It was Kshetra, which is the body, then the living entity, the super soul, the senses, and the efforts, the endeavor, which we put. Right? So in short, we learned this before in 3rd and 5th chapter, that 3 factors, right? Which is soul, super soul, and material nature. Here, Krishna is giving a bit of more insight when it comes to material nature. The soul and super soul remains, but material nature is split into 3. Right? Which is senses, body, and efforts. Okay. And after that, we learned how modes control all our activities. So in 17th chapter, we learned how modes control, even sacrifice, charity, all can be done in 3 different modes. Similarly, we learned in 18th chapter last class that even our knowledge, determination, our work, all these are also under control. They are done in 3 modes. Even happiness, we saw how it is in 3 modes. And then Krishna even explained how Tyaga, renunciation, is also in 3 modes. Okay. And the last verse we learned last week was 40th verse. And that where Krishna concludes that nothing in this world exists without the control of these 3 modes. These 3 modes control everything else. Right? So with that, we move to today's topic from shloka 41 to 48. Yeah? And today we will see that actually if we perform our duties per our varnashrama, yeah, then how we get purified and we can attain that Brahman class, right? So just going back, this slide, you see that 41st to 48th verse, we study how by performing our prescribed duty based on our varnashrama, we get purified. And once we get purified, we attain that Brahman platform, which is 49 to 50. Okay. Now, we'll start with the first shloka for today. And this is not from 18th, from 4th chapter. We learned this. Chaturvarnyam maya shrishtam gunakarma vibhagashim tasya kartaram apimam vidhiya kartaram avyayam. Right? So Krishna already mentioned in 4th chapter that he has divided, based on according to the 3 modes of material nature. Yeah, he has made 4 divisions of human society. Now that we are learning so much about modes in the last 6 chapter, I think it will make more sense now when we read the same shloka from 4th chapter, where Krishna has already mentioned that. So, it's not that modes were only mentioned in this last 6 section. They were mentioned before, right? But exclusively, yes, we are talking in the last 6 section. But like we can see in this shloka, based on the 3 modes of material nature, in which mode we are in, Krishna made 4 divisions of human society, yeah, which is the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and the Shudra, right? And then he says, although I'm the creator of the system, he already mentioned before itself that you should know that I'm yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. So he is not impacted. He's not under the modes, right? And we learned before as well how, see, if we learned with an example that if we are stuck in a well, right? Who can help us? A person who is outside the well, right? When we are inside the well, if there is somebody outside the well who helps us to come out, only then we can come out, right? Similarly, we see that, Krishna is not under the influence of these 3 modes. So if somebody can pull us out of these 3 modes, it will be someone who is outside the stream, and it is Krishna. Okay. So with that, we will move further. And we learned how we have seen this building also, right? That how when we were learning modes, the most bottom floor is the ignorance, passion, and goodness is the top, right? Now, in 41st verse, which is the first verse for today, Krishna says that Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are distinguished based by the qualities born of their own natures, in accordance with the material modes, O chastiser of energy. So Krishna is again saying clearly, he has divided based on the qualities of one's nature. Based on what quality, what mode a particular person is. Okay, and we'll learn a bit more about this. Yeah. So Krishna has created different sets of duties depending on psychophysical nature. We learned this, right? So based on our psychophysical nature, Krishna has divided, us to fit in one of these categories. Okay, it can be Brahmanas, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, or Shudras. Okay. Now, in this, one important thing we, when Krishna has divided this society, yeah, based on certain qualities, right? Now we will see in this slide, it's like Varnas and Guna, right? Gunas are the modes. Now, gunas are sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is goodness, rajas is passion, tamas is ignorance. And on the left-hand side, you will see the varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. So, like Brahmanas are known to be mostly in the mode of goodness. Okay. So, I'm sorry for the background noise. Is it very disturbing? Okay, thank you. Okay, so like Brahmanas are known to be mostly in mode of goodness. That is their primary mode, like you can see in this table. The primary mode Brahmanas are in is sattva, goodness, and they don't have a secondary mode. Whereas Kshatriyas, their primary mode is passion. And secondary mode, they have a bit of goodness, yeah, part of goodness. And then we come further down, Vaishyas. The primary mode is passion. Okay, like we have seen in each of these examples, like, Brahmanas, right? Kshatriyas are the kings. The primary, mode is they are passionate, right? Because they have to protect, right? And they have goodness as well. Whereas Vaishyas, they are like the business class. They use, so they are primarily in passion. And secondary mode, which is with them, is ignorance. Shudras, primary mode is ignorance, because they are helpers, right? And then secondary mode is rajas, right? And like Prabhupada says, in Kali Yuga, all of us fall in which category? Which varna? Shudras, yes, correct, right? So with that, we will move further, because this table gives us a background to understand the next verses. Yeah. Now, 45th to 46th verse, yeah, 2 verses. Krishna says, by following his qualities of work, yeah, each of the people who are in each of these, categories, by following the qualities of work, every man can become perfect. That's what Krishna is. Yeah? As part and parcel of Supreme Lord, one has his duty to render service to the Supreme. Everyone should be engaged in devotional service to the Lord in full Krishna consciousness. Yeah. And the results of work in which one is engaged, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna should be worshipped. So results of work should be engaged in Krishna consciousness. Yeah? In whatever occupation one may be engaged, if he serves the Supreme Lord, he will achieve the highest perfection. So it just to explain a bit more, more on this. So Krishna has discussed about different qualities of each varnas. Okay, each of the varnas have a specific quality, like Brahmanas. Brahmanas have the quality of like peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. Yeah, these are like qualities of Brahmanas, natural qualities by which a Brahmana works, right? Similarly, when we talk about Kshatriya, their primary mode is passion, right? So qualities of Kshatriya are like heroism, power, determination, courage in the battle, leadership qualities, right? These are the natural qualities of, Kshatriyas. Whereas when we talk about Vaishyas, it is business, right? So it is like farming, cow protection, or business, right? These are the natural works for Vaishyas. And for Shudras, it is labor, right? Serving others, right? That is the quality. So what Krishna is saying is that each of these varnas, we are all part and parcel of Krishna. But one important thing, what Krishna said, what we see here is, in whatever occupation we may be engaged in, whichever varna, whichever occupation, if we serve the Supreme Lord, if we give our results to Krishna, then we attain the highest perfection. That's what, this shloka is for us. Yeah. And see, qualities are born based on the mode of nature we are in. And in 18th, this shloka, 45th shloka, Krishna states that everyone has to follow their work, right? Everyone has to be engaged in their work based on their mode they are in, their varna they are in. Like Brahmanas have to do their work, and the rest class of people, like the Kshatriyas, have to do their work, protection, right? And Vaishyas have to do their work. So rest, all of them have to lead, if they follow their varna, their duties, then they will attain perfection. Yeah? We have to understand that the main message here is that we should not imitate others. Rather, if we do our work and offer results to Krishna, that will purify us and will attain perfection. Rather than looking into others, trying to jump into another varna, and try to attain perfection. No, right? Like, for example, maybe you can correlate with an example like Arjuna. Yeah, Arjuna was running away to take sannyasa, right? So he's a Kshatriya. He was running away to take up another order of life, another, but his qualities, he is Kshatriya. If he continues, his duties of fighting in the battle, based on Krishna's orders, giving the results of his work to Krishna, in his own varna, then he will attain perfection, right? That's what Krishna tells him as well, right? Rather than switching your varna, no, do what you're doing and give results to Krishna, and you will attain perfection, right? Because Krishna declines that. And again, he explains here for us, like he instructed to Arjuna, to follow our duty of our varna and to do our work and offer the results to Krishna to attain that perfection. Okay, so Krishna is advising us that we have to do our best and offer the results to Krishna, and then he will take care of the rest and will attain that perfection. Okay, so that's the importance of that varna, following our own duty. Right? Now, next, following this, we have same on the same lines, again in 47th and 48th verse, Krishna, tells us that it's better to do one's own duty rather than imitating others. Okay, so maybe sorry, Biswa Prabhuji, can you read this?
Yes, Mataji. Better to do one's own duty. Bhagavad Gita 18.47 and 48 verse. It is better to engage in one's own occupations, even though one may perform it imperfectly. The duties of a Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra are prescribed according to their particular modes of nature. One should not imitate another's duty. One should work according to his own nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Law. Every endeavor is covered by some faults, just as fire is covered by smoke. Therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature, O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of faults. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So it is very clear here. Remember, we took an example of some, there are some people who kind of take up spirituality, and the mindset is that I have to renounce everything. And we learned how that kind of mentality is actually in mode of ignorance. So what Krishna is again, highlighting here for us is that we should not imitate others' duties. Brahmanas, for example, they have to perform yagnas, right? Sacrifice. That's their primary duty. And they have to sometimes, as part of those sacrifices, they have to also do animal sacrifice. So we can hear that some people say that it is not advisable. It's not right. So that doesn't mean that the Brahmanas stop their work, right? Or that doesn't also mean that we imitate them. They are doing fire sacrifice with animal sacrificing, so we should also imitate. No, right? Krishna states that one should perform work according to their own nature. Now, Brahmanas in Satyuga, Treta Yuga, we see they used to do animal sacrifice. Why? Because there was power in their mantras, right? Their mantra, if they put an animal in a sacrifice, their mantra had so much of power that they could give, the animal a new body, a healthy body. So or they could they had the power to have that animal elevate in the species, maybe get a human form, elevating that level. So they had that power in their mantras to not make such animals suffer and to get them new body or elevate them, So but we cannot imitate them, right? So they should be. One should be performing their work according to their nature, right? Brahmana's nature, that's their basic primary duty. And no work is abominable if it is performed for Krishna and as per scriptures. If we see Arjuna fighting in the battle, killing, just seeing Arjuna killing people, we can think it is abominable action, killing. No, but similarly to Brahmana's example. So, but no, it is not abominable if it is performed for the Lord, right? Arjuna fought the battle, Krishna, right? And if they are following the scriptures, a Kshatriya has to fight. That's their primary duty. Right? So they have to kill it. And similarly, like Vaishyas, let's take. We took the example of Brahmanas, Kshatriyas. So let's say Vaishyas. Vaishyas are business class people, right? They have to sometimes use tactics in their business to make profit. So, and with Shudras also, they have to serve their master. And sometimes it might be that they get good master to serve, or sometimes, they have serving a bad master. So you see any Varna, each Varna, there is a kind of, like Vaishyas doing the business to earn profit, to use tactics, Kshatriya killing. There is a fault in every Varna. Okay. So all Varnas have some or the other fault. But the fault can be rectified. And how Krishna states here that we see that in here, he mentions in the second paragraph here that one should not imitate another's duty, which we just learned. One should work according to his own nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme. Right? And the next one is every endeavor is covered by some fault, just as fire is covered by smoke. Right? So therefore, one should not give up the work born of his nature. Right? O son of Kunti, even if such work is full of fault. Right? Now, see, all Varnas have one or the other fault. But the fault can be rectified how? Like Krishna is saying here, to keep performing your activities. But the sacrifice has to be performed to give the results to Krishna. Because we have to have that mindset always that we are eternal servants of Krishna. Jivera Swarupa Hoye, Krishnera. Right? So by sacrificing the results to Krishna, those faults in us, while we are performing prescribed duties, those faults which accompany those duties, by sacrificing, by dedicating the results to Krishna, those faults which we are doing for our work, they get purified. Okay. And to explain this, only Krishna explains this with an example here. That, see, fire is covered by the smoke. Again, an example of fire. So what this means is that fire is, we know fire is all pure, right? And it is meant to give us heat and light. But when it's lit, it will be accompanied by a smoke, right? And this smoke can cause us some trouble, right? It can cause irritation to our eyes, and it will really cause irritation to our breath and everything. But after some time, we see that the smoke disappears. And we can experience the heat and light of the fire. Similarly, when we perform our prescribed duties, which are born of our varnas, we will slowly get purified. And the bad thing, like that smoke, will go. And the good thing will remain with us. Yeah. So even if our work has faults, we should continue to do that work, keeping Krishna in center, offering results to Krishna. And by continuously doing this, the bad part will slowly go away. And when the bad parts go away, we get purified. It's similar to the concept of what we learned with akarma, vikarma, and karma. Whether you do karma, good deeds, or vikarma, both will give reaction. But as our account for akarma is karma for Krishna, right? Doing work for Krishna, offering results to Krishna. As that account increases, then the other two goes down. Then we are getting purified. Right? So the same thing, is in here over there. And we were, just to make it easy also, what work done for Krishna. So karma can be good or bad. If we do work for Krishna, then Krishna will accept the good part of us. because he's seeing our endeavor, right? So Krishna accepts that good part and he destroys the bad part. And when the bad part gets destroyed, what gets awarded to us? The spiritual knowledge. He awards us with spiritual knowledge, and with help of which we gradually get purified. Okay. So overall, this section talks about how, based on our avarna, when we perform our duties, we get purified, and we should not imitate others. Rather, we should continue performing our work based on our varna, giving the results to Krishna, and that will purify us, and that bad part will go. Yeah. Okay. With that, we switch to the second part of today. Once we get purified, how we attain the Brahman platform. So yeah, let's come here then. So this section, the gist of this section, yeah, it is that how from Nishkam Karma Yoga, I think Ramaprabha Mataji had raised this also, right, last time. So how this section talks, how by offering our results to Krishna, right, not expecting any results back for self. So by performing Nishkam Karma Yoga, we'll come to a Brahman platform. We get purified and we attain the Brahman platform. And from there, from that stage, we reach to pure bhakti, and which pure bhakti will then lead us to Krishna. Yeah, this is kind of an overview of how this Krishna is telling, the cycle, how it goes with this. So in this section, Krishna describes how the transition from reaction-free work, which is, akarma, right? How the transition from reaction-free work through attaining knowledge, jnana, makes us reach to Brahman platform. And that Brahman platform then eventually leads us to pure devotional service. So with that, I'll come to the next slide, which is 18.49 verse. And Hare Krishna Prabhuji, can you read?
Yeah, yes, Mataji. Perfect stage of sannyasa, Bhagavad Gita 18.49. One who is self-controlled and unattached and who disregards all material enjoyments can obtain by practice of renunciation the highest perfect stage of freedom from reaction. Real renunciation means that one should always think himself part and parcel of Supreme Lord, and therefore think that he has no right to enjoy the results of his work. Since he is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, the results of his work must be enjoyed by the Supreme Lord. This is actually Krishna consciousness. The person acting in Krishna consciousness is really a sannyasi, one in the renounced order of life. This state of mind is called Yoga
Yoga
Ruddha,
Rudha.
Yoga Rudha, or the perfectional stage of yoga.
Thank you. So, see, Prabhupada in the purport has mentioned this. What is real renunciation? What is actual real renunciation? It is not having that doership, ownership, and enjoyership. It is always, being in a stage where we are aware that we are nothing but, servants of the servants of the servants of servants of Krishna. And anything, results of our work should not be enjoyed by us, but he's the supreme enjoyer. Yeah. So this is actually Krishna consciousness. That's what, and this is actually, being a renunciation. So a practitioner of Krishna consciousness, actually, what do? We try to control our senses, right? Our body, our mind. We try to disregard all the sense gratification. So such people are actually performing, even though they are in this material world, they are actually practicing renunciation. Because they are not doing something for self, but for Krishna. Krishna states clearly in 3rd chapter, I think it's 9th verse, Yagnatharth karmano nyat lokoyam karma bandhana tadartam karma konteya mukta sangas. Right? So perform yagna, for pleasure of Vishnu. Yeah. So such a person who really practices renunciation, actually, is free from all the reactions. That's the perfect stage, of renunciation. That's what, this verse tells us. And further we see how, how to obtain that perfect stage, that a Brahman platform. Krishna explains further, how to obtain that Brahman platform in the next shloka, which is the 50th shloka. So, Jyoti Mataji, can you read this?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Formula to attain Brahman. Can you hear me clearly? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Formula to attain Brahman. Brahma Bhuta stage. Bhagavad Gita 18.50. So, having attained such perfection by sessions of all work, one realizes Brahman, the stage of highest knowledge, Jnana. The Lord describes for Arjuna how one can achieve the highest perfectional stage simply by being engaged in his occupational duty, performing that duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One attains the supreme stage of Brahman simply by renouncing the result of his work for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. So here Krishna gives us a formula how to attain that Brahma Bhuta stage. In this stage, a person has almost received the perfection by cessation of all material work. Yeah. See, first we perform Nishkam Karma Yoga, right? Where we renounce the results. And then, by Jnana. Jnana is where you are self-realized, right? If we remember the yoga ladder also, first comes Nishkam Karma Yoga, right? Where you're renouncing the results. And then comes, that the next stage is the Jnana Yoga, right? Where you are self-realized. You are aware that you are a soul, you're, and you're part and parcel, and you're self-realized, and you are in knowledge. And there is renunciation of work there, right? They are Jnana Yogis, they are renounced, they are full of knowledge, they are self-realized, and they are renounced of work, right? Not only the fruits, but also the work. But see, we have to understand in this stage, there are two conceptions. One is personalist conception, and the other is the impersonalist conception. Impersonalist conception, like we have learned, they think that the Supreme is the light, right? The effulgence, and after that they merge into it. That is Mayavadis, right? Mayavadis are where they think that they merge after the death, and then after that there is nothing. But there are other class of people who are, who are personalist, and they, after this stage, they rise further. They don't stop there in Jnana. They rise further to Bhakti, because they know, they know that they are like, they get into this platform and Krishna is the personal form. You know, they know their real position, that they are just part and parcel, you know, of Krishna. And that's where they rise further into bhakti. Whenever we see pure devotees, you know, we should understand that they have already attained this Brahma Bhuta stage. You know, that's what is the gist. You know, so these two classes of people, when we talk about that platform, it can be two conceptions. You know, the personalist further advanced to bhakti, whereas the impersonalist think that is the last. You know, that's the absolute aspect of the truth. Okay. So with that, we go to the 51st to 53rd verse, process of realizing Brahman. Yeah. Now here Krishna is actually describing the qualities of people. What are the qualities of people who have achieved that Brahma Bhuta stage? Yeah. And this shloka he explains about the qualities, and in further shlokas we'll see how Krishna states that personalists, you know, they have to grow further from Jnana Yoga stage or Brahma Bhuta stage, from Brahma Bhuta stage to Bhakti stage. We'll see that in following verses. Okay. So, Kavya Mataji, can you read this?
Yes, Mata. Process of realizing Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 18.51 to 53. Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination. Giving up objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred. One who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, who controls his body, mind, and power of speech, who is always in trance, and who is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, free from false proprietorship, and peaceful. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I think we have gone in detail for most, you know, each of these qualities before, right? We learned the qualities in, you know, of a devotee in 12th chapter, 13th chapter, right? 12th chapter, I think from verse 12, 20, then 13th chapter we learned, right? And 15th chapter also, 16th chapter, right? Sorry. So 16th chapter also we learned. So this is these are the qualities Krishna is again highlighting. And like I said, you know, further shloka, you know, it states how a personalist, you know, has to go further from this stage of Brahman to, you know, pure bhakti, because after attaining that bhakti stage, we can attain Krishna. Okay. So we'll go to the next verse where Krishna highlights Brahma Bhuta stage to bhakti, right? And we did this recitation, this shloka recitation. So is there anyone who couldn't send their recording and would like to, you know, recite the shloka?
I am.
Sure, Jatimataji, go ahead.
Yeah. Brahma Bhuta Prasanna Atma Na Sachati Na Karikashti Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never lamentates or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, I can't see the last one. In that state, he
attains pure devotional service.
Okay, let me move the page. Yeah, please continue. I
Okay.
cannot see.
Okay.
Maybe it's not moving yet.
So I'll go, read the translation again. So what Krishna is saying here is Brahma Bhuta Prasanna, right? Brahma Bhuta is that transcendental stage, right? So one who is transcendentally situated in that Brahma Bhuta stage, you know, at once realizes the Supreme Brahman. prasannati. He becomes very fully joyful. Right? Samaha sarva bhuteshu. Bhuteshu means living entities. So he is equal. Samaha sarva bhuteshu. Mad bhaktim labde. Krishna is saying he attains pure devotional service. Right? So transcendentally situated means that Brahmabhuta stage, right? That's why it is mentioned Brahmabhuta. Now Krishna is saying such a person is eligible to realize Krishna. Person who is transcendently situated. A person is eligible to attain pure devotional service or bhakti towards Krishna. Okay, so this is kind of a criteria. That's what Krishna is saying. You have to reach here in order to get that pure devotional service. And further in the purport, Prabhupada has very beautifully mentioned. So maybe Ramaprabha Mataji, can you read this?
Brahmabhuta Stage 2 Bhakti, Bhagavad Gita 18.54 purport. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. Because a pure devotee has no thought other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He has no desire for material enjoyment because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and therefore eternally a servant. This is the Brahma Bhuta stage, and this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotee. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria, and the senses are like serpents whose poison teeth are broken. As there is no fear of a serpent with broken teeth, there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled.
Thank you. Prabhupada says very nicely that this stage is attained by pure devotees, right? And we must have experienced, when we meet pure devotees, we get that vibe, right? It's a different experience altogether. So what Prabhupada is saying that in that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with Supreme Brahman is hellish. That's Mayavadi philosophy, right? In this stage, like I said, there are two conceptions. One is a personalist conception where you know that, you are in knowledge, and you're part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is personal, not impersonal, right? And there are classes where it is Mayavadis, where they think that, we will become one, and, then we are also God, right? So that's what Prabhupada says, that for a devotee, it is hellish to even think of the idea of becoming one with Supreme. A servant is a servant. We cannot be the master, and that idea of becoming a master itself is very hellish. Okay, so even Prabhupada says, that attaining the next statement here, which I wanted to, this word. So the idea of attaining the heavenly kingdom becomes phantasmagoria. So Prabhupada, I think the English, it's so, there are so many new words we learn while we are going through the purpose of Bhagavad Gita, beautiful. So what Prabhupada is saying that for such devotees, attaining higher planet is nothing but, it's also in a way like they know that it's illusion. It's at the end of the day in this material world, we will undergo the death and birth cycle. So they're fully aware. And the senses are like serpents whose poison teeth are broken. So the person has control over senses. So it's like a serpent whose teeth, the poisonous teeth are broken, so that they are no more harmful, because the senses are under control of the devotee rather than the senses controlling the person. So that's the difference. So that's why there is no fear from the senses, because they are controlled. They are fully in control. So that's what is in the purport. And this will be the last shloka for today, which is how bhakti helps to know Krishna and attain Krishna's planet, which is his abode. Yeah. So Reshma Mataji, can you read this?
Yes, Mataji. Bhakti helps to know Krishna and attain.
Mataji, there is heavy disturbance around. I think, do you have, I don't know, if there are two systems where you're connected with, that's why there's an echo.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Okay, I'll switch off one thing.
Yeah, I think that so maybe you can just disconnect the audio of one, and that will not cause the echo.
Okay. Bhaktya mama bhijanati yava anya shasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Bhagavad Gita 18.55. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. So again, Krishna is highlighting, we will be able to understand him only by devotional service. Right? So we have to raise from the platform of Brahman. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can go back to Krishna. That's what Krishna is saying. So there have been so many time points where Krishna has been like, just imagine, he is supreme enjoyer, supreme well-wisher, supreme proprietor. But still we see how, even being in such supreme position, he is again and again requesting in Gita, at consistent time points, just one thing, that perform devotional service to himself. I'll take care of the rest, right? So that's the sweetness of Krishna, even being in that supreme position. It's not, we need him, right? We have been fallen, we have fallen, but still he is more eager to get us back than we are to go back to him, right? So again, in this verse, he's highlighting, just perform devotional service, just perform your thing, and then he will take care of the rest, right? And Krishna this verse clearly says that Krishna can only be known by bhakti, not by speculation. This may be, this may not be. Speculating will not help us. It will either pull us down. And nor by just reading scriptures. No, just knowing many shlokas, knowing many scriptures, that is not the essence. We have to understand the essence when we are going through this. So only by devotional services, all he wants from us is to love him, that love, right? So we have to keep performing our devotional service, and that's it he needs. And in the purport, we'll see how Prabhupada has mentioned about a green color bird. It says, like, a green color bird enters a tree with green leaves. Okay, and this example, what I'm talking about, Prabhupada is giving it for the last line here. Vishate tad anantaram. Yeah. Now, Vishate tad anantaram. Vishate means enters. Tat anantaram is thereafter he enters. Basically, Vishate anantaram is thereafter he enters. So he explains it beautifully with an example of a green color bird entering a tree with green leaves. Okay. So for a impersonalist, for a Mayavadi, it may mean that the bird is getting merged in the tree, because you cannot see the difference between the green bird and everything green, right? So they think that the bird has merged inside. That's the thought process, because the characteristics are similar. But for a personalist, it means that they are entering. We are birds, they know what is our position and where we are entering. And the place that we are entering is nothing but the planet of Krishna. It's the abode of Krishna. But we will always have our own individuality of bird. We cannot become the tree. Even though we have, we are Sachitananda. Even we are Sachitananda. And Krishna is, right? Full of bliss. So that does not mean that we have lost our individuality just by going into Krishna's. No. Even after going to Supreme Abode, our individuality continues and we keep serving Krishna, and this is actually liberation, where there is continuous service to Krishna. A personalist, even after going back to the Supreme World, there is a continuous service. That's why there is no fall down. Okay. Whereas in the Brahman platform, there is a lack of service, to the personal form of Krishna. And that's why there are chances to fall. That's what Acharya said. Right? So with that, so with that, we conclude today's session, where, we learned about mainly the Varnashrama, how by performing our prescribed duty, our work, and offering the results to Krishna, will get purified, and how, not to imitate others, rather do your work, even though it is imperfect, keep continuing to do it. And by dedicating the results to Krishna, bad part of the work will go, and the account of good will increase. So, and then we, learned about how the Supreme, right? Once we attain that purity, we attain the Brahman platform, right? And how in Brahman platform, we learned how there are two conceptions, but the personalists, the devotees, they further progress, into the pure bhakti by which we attain Krishna. Okay. So with that, we will conclude the session today. And